The incredible moment she discovered surprising compassion behind the bathroom door. Jessica stood in her quaint kitchen, untangling the remnants of her life as a teacher. The kettle whistled, a sharp reminder that she was in a world that felt increasingly foreign. Once, she ignited minds with the wonders of chemistry. Now, the echoes of laughter and curiosity faded into muffled silence. She felt like a ghost slipping through maple-scented air, drifting past homes that breathed vitality, while she stood still. The pang of insignificance gnawed at her. How could one school year with a fresh-faced colleague wipe out decades of dedication? As she wandered through her tidy neighborhood, memories blossomed and wilted like the flowers lining the sidewalks. Students' eager faces, the brilliance of newfound knowledge sparkled in their eyes. And yet, a dark undertone tugged insistently at her heart. Had her time really meant so little? She hesitated at the edge of despair, feeling as if she were losing herself in the very streets she once roamed purposefully. Each tree, each mailbox, whispering her former glory, felt like a cruel reminder of what she'd lost. In a desperate attempt to reclaim her sense of self, Jessica began volunteering at the local shelter. Perhaps, she thought, by serving others, she could fill the hollow void left by her departure from teaching. On that fateful evening, she sorted through boxes, her hands busy, yet her mind racing, suffocated by confusion. Overhead, a tense conversation erupted between two families, cutting through the muffled noise of the shelter. One, sharply dressed, spoke of personal responsibility, while the other, worn and weary, pleaded for understanding. The stark contrast floored Jessica. Here was a clash of worlds, and she feared which side she lingered on. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Jessica's heart raced as each accusation of entitlement unraveled her preconceived notions. She felt exposed, vulnerable, as hope and disdain clashed within her. When the evening ended and she retreated to her home, questions drummed like thunder in her mind. Who was she to judge? What solidarity did she dare dream of when the world outside was riddled with divides? Her restless nights didn't end when a pipe burst and she found herself reluctantly Googling handyman. Michael, the man who showed up, was a stark contrast to her world. Tattoos adorned his arms, his voice rough yet genuine, and somehow he made her laugh. In the steamy chaos of her bathroom, mundane repairs turned into conversations that pried open her world. As they shared dreams and disappointments, Jessica realized how much she had distanced herself from those she had once deemed other. The conversations twisted her moral compass, causing her to question whether kindness had limits. But as friendship blossomed behind the walls of her once tired home, the nagging sense of injustice danced at the edges of her thoughts, reminding her of sacrifices made, not just in career, but in soul. Soon, she could taste the tension. She envisioned transforming her bathroom into a vibrant art space, a manifestation of healing. Yet lurking beneath her newfound resolve was the fear that came with it, the possibility of failure, of opening herself up to judgment. As the project became her passion, news arrived of budget cuts threatening after-school programs for kids from low-income families. Jessica staggered backward. Fighting for these kids was not just about them, it was her chance to reclaim purpose yet again. At a public meeting, with the eyes of the entire community boring into her, she stood, voice trembling. Every previous silence echoed, a heavy weight lingering like the steam from the bathroom pipe. Could this moment transform her fear into action? Would she find the strength to confront not just the town's leaders, but her own biases? The air crackled with anticipation. Jessica, and the resolution teetered tantalizingly close, yet remained paradoxically out of reach. Jessica could hardly concentrate as the meeting dragged on. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum, summoning the courage to defend a cause she believed in. As she looked around the room, faces of indifference met her anxious gaze. The same voices that once sought her out for guidance now seemed infused with hostility or disinterest, and she felt small among them. What could she offer that would resonate? Would her passion crumble under scrutiny? When the moment arrived, a spotlight of silence fell upon her. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of every doubt creep in. Did she even have the authority to address these issues? Who was she? A woman who had relinquished her post as an educator to champion the education of others. Standing before the panel, she wrestled with her insecurities. "This isn't just about after-school programs," she began, voice quavering yet firm. "It is about opportunity, about lifting those who've been overlooked. Education shouldn't cater only to those with means. It should serve as a bridge for every child." The words poured out, bared raw by her desperation to be heard. As she spoke, Jessica felt as if she were scraping away layers of self-imposed limitations, grappling with each word, challenging herself, and peeling back insecurities from years of conditioned silence. She watched as the eyes in the audience shifted from disinterest to something resembling contemplation. Her heart raced. Could they be thinking differently? Did they grasp the urgency of her message? The reality that for every cut in funding, a child's potential was being stifled? Still, a part of her feared she was merely projecting her own emotions onto their passive expressions, a desperate grasp for validation that never materialized. After what felt like an eternity, Jessica finished her plea. Silence hung heavy in the air. Then, almost impossibly, applause erupted. It was tentative at first, but gradually grew in intensity as others joined in, stirred by her fervor. Was it empathy she felt in return, or merely relief that someone had the courage to speak? Energized yet apprehensive, she stepped back into the crowd, shaken and elated, a cyclone of experiences crashing through her mind. Michael's words echoed from their conversations about the complexities of societal expectations and the need to dismantle barriers. She felt the inner conflict rippling through her between feeling empowered yet disconnected from those she aimed to help. Was she being genuine or merely crafting an identity around others' struggles? Outside the meeting, in the quiet embrace of dusk, Jessica allowed herself a moment to breathe and reflect. The person she had become, transformed in both thought and action, sparked with potential. She no longer clung to the echoes of her past, but sought to carve out a future, though shadows of doubt still lingered. There, where ambition clashed with uncertainty, her resolve flickered bright. Yet the battle was far from over. The council members would deliberate, and the signs were clear. Changes were coming. How far was she willing to go? What price would she pay to defend those children and their right to an education? With her pulse still thrumming in her ears, she turned to head home, fear and determination mingling within her. This was merely the beginning. She needed a plan, a strategy to ensure her voice would not just linger in the ether, but transform into action. How could she galvanize the community further? Find allies who would stand with her, not just in her words, but in tangible support? As night fell, her thoughts began to take shape, a new strategy bubbling beneath her surface. The moment for transformation teetered perilously close, yet one question still lingered, poised to break through the surface. Would she find the courage to face those who disagreed, to confront directly those who felt threatened by her efforts? The significance of her path loomed ahead, and the decisions she made next would either propel her into purpose or drown her in despair. The following day, Jessica awoke with a palpable tension brewing inside her. She felt the weight pressing against her chest, a reduction of breath that spoke of anticipation. The echoes of the previous night's meeting still rang in her ears, but now those moments began to crystallize into a call to action. She had spoken up. The applause, however tentative, wasn't merely a fleeting moment of glory. It was a signal, the stirring of something deeper within those who had remained silent too long. She stood in front of the mirror, scrutinizing the woman looking back at her. There was determination now, but also vulnerability. What next? The questions churned like a tempest inside her mind. She could hardly focus on the mundane morning rituals. At work, as her colleagues discussed ongoing projects, Jessica's mind drifted. She jotted down notes, blurred ideas and strategies, frantically trying to channel her thoughts into coherent plans. A digital platform for sharing resources, forums for open discussion among parents and educators. These could ignite the fire that fueled the urgency she felt. Suddenly, a voice broke her concentration. "Jessica, you in there?" It was Claudia, a close friend who had always been supportive but had remained distant from Jessica's newly embraced activism. She entered the office, a bright ray in an otherwise dim space. Jessica attempted to mask her chaos, but she couldn't avoid Claudia's direct gaze, which bore into her, searching for the truth bubbling just beneath the surface. "You seem a bit off, Jess. What's going on?" Claudia asked, her tone gentle but inquisitive. Jessica hesitated, the familiar withdrawal creeping in. She considered holding back, hiding her intentions under a cloak of professionalism, but something urged her to let go. "I want to do more," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about the kids and making sure they have a chance." Claudia frowned, shaking her head. "You don't want to get into something that might end up," she struggled for the right word, "messy, do you?" Despite her concern, there was a spark of something else in Claudia's expression, an invite to understanding. Frustration surged within Jessica. Messy? Life's messy. These kids don't have the luxury of worrying about whether it's safe or logical. They need someone to take a stand. The passion scaled her voice, surprising even her, unearthing a sense of authority she hadn't realized was there. Claudia crossed her arms, now the one to hesitate. "Okay, but how do you plan on doing that? You made a move, sure, but it's going to take more than a speech. You need a team, Jess." Jessica's mind raced. She pictured a group, brainstorming, waves of ideas crashing together, each voice building on the last. "You're right," she conceded. "I need a team, but who will join me? And more importantly, how do I approach them? They could just as easily push back." "I think you should confront the opposition directly," Claudia suggested, her eyes glimmering with something uncertain but hopeful. "Show them you're serious. If they're resisting change, then they should be informed," Jessica finished, the thrill of challenge invigorating her. The very thought electrified her, igniting a spark of creativity. She imagined not just confronting individuals, but engaging them, inviting dialogue rather than opposition. This was her moment. Jessica felt the knot of uncertainty loosening. Perhaps the real courage lay not just in speaking out, but in listening, unearthing perspectives, and finding common ground. It was about compassion, not just entrenched debate. As lunch break approached, a shift occurred in her. The vision for a gathering where dialogue flow as easily as ideas began to take life. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the cusp of greater things, teetering on the brink of a discovery. But her reflections were interrupted when a familiar face lurked near the bathroom door. Michael, a former colleague with whom she'd had many sleepless discussions about system failings, caught her eye. The spark of recognition ignited uncertainty within her. Would he support her new ambition or see her as a nuisance? The atmosphere charged with potential. Jessica drew a sharp breath, feeling compelled to confront the shadow of her past. Her internal voice questioned, "What if he questions my motives? What if he isn't on my side?" The answers loomed ahead, and Jessica felt her heart quickening with resolve. As she approached him, the moment felt ripe, teetering between the thrill of intimacy and the fear of exposure. The pivotal truth awaited discovery, And in that breathless instant, she stood ready to engage, the unfolding narrative promising both conflict and clarity. "Jessica," Michael greeted, a hesitant smile breaking across his face. The warmth of that smile sparked a trace of nostalgic comfort, but it was quickly overshadowed by the uncertainty of their shared history. "Hey, Michael," she replied, unsure whether to embrace the familiar or tread carefully on new ground. Beneath that smile lay the remnants of countless late-night debates, ideas that had once collided with fervent energy, and the unresolved tension that created a rift in their professional paths. "I saw the presentation yesterday. Impressive," he said, his voice neutral but his eyes darting, evaluating. "Interesting direction you're taking." That phrase hung in the air, heavy and pregnant with possibilities. Was it praise or merely polite acknowledgement? Jessica took a breath, feeling her resolve crystallize. "I'm trying to push for change," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor within. "But I need others on board. I can't do it alone." Michael raised an eyebrow, skepticism creeping into his expression. "Changes come with risks, Jess. You know that better than anyone." The weight of his words felt like a challenge, a cliff she was teetering on, considering whether to leap or retreat. "I understand the risks," she responded, her heart pounding with both fear and adrenaline. "But these kids, they deserve a voice. We've talked about it before. Why not join me? You could bring in the data aggregations we discussed. They're vital." For a moment, Michael seemed almost amused. "You think I haven't moved on? You think I want to dig back into that?" The humor was thin, strained between their unresolved past and yearning present. Her invitation forced him to confront dormant aspirations buried beneath responsibility and disillusionment. "Maybe not," Jessica replied, more forcefully than she intended, her anxiety morphing into determination. "But if not you, then who? I need someone who knows the systems, who can challenge them from within. The kids don't have the luxury of waiting for change to feel convenient. If we don't speak for, then who will?" The hallway's fluorescent lights reflected off the sterile tiles, but she felt as though there was warmth lingering in her words. Eye contact held, her gaze bore into his, daring him to see beyond doubt. He narrowed his eyes, hesitation eclipsing intrigue. "You talk about being a voice for the kids, but what about your own voice? You can't assume others will support you, especially not in this atmosphere. You have to prepare for resistance." "I'm willing to face resistance," Jessica shot back, each word imbued with the vigor of newfound persistence. "But I can't be the only one standing up. That doesn't make it a movement, it makes it a plea. I believe there's strength in numbers, there's strength in coalition." She could see the doubt flicker across his features, but it was accompanied now by curiosity. Perhaps she was igniting something he had buried. The resonance between them was palpable, years' worth of discussions suddenly framed in clarity. Jessica sensed a shift, a compelling urge within her to outpace the unease and dig deeper. What if we could take that strength and channel it into actionable ideas? We could reconvene the conversations we never finished. "I'm not promising anything," he replied, and yet his ambiguity felt more open than closed. "That's all I'm asking for," she said softly. "Just one conversation. Let's reframe it, not as an argument or a contest, but as a collaborative effort." Michael's gaze shifted to the floor momentarily, the weight of her determination beginning to penetrate where once there had been skepticism. Jessica could almost feel the walls surrounding him start to quiver. The prospect hung in the air. Her heart raced with anticipation. Perhaps she had found a way in, a crack to wedge open wider truths. As they both stood there, she couldn't shake a creeping feeling that this moment may redefine both their paths. But their time was short. The office buzzed with the arrival of colleagues, reality beginning to encroach once again. "Think about it," she said, her voice low and steady, breaking that lingering silence. "But don't wait too long." With that weighty ultimatum echoing in the corridor, Jessica made her way back to her desk, a cautious thrill electrifying her. The path forward had not just begun to take shape, it had become a battleground. What came next might be even more pivotal than the conversation, a personal revelation she didn't anticipate. With each heartbeat, the question expanded, echoing in the corners of her mind. What if this was only the beginning of the confrontation she had to endure? And who else might appear in the shadows, ready to challenge or collaborate? The implications cascaded with each beat, creating ripples in her new journey. Sitting at her cluttered desk, Jessica replayed the conversation with Michael in her mind. Each word, each moment, hung in the air like an unfinished melody, resonating deeply within her. The confrontation had illuminated something within her, a long dormant courage waiting for the confrontation. Right opportunity to emerge. Suddenly, the prospect of collaboration with Michael didn't feel just like an idea, it felt like a lifeline. However, as her excitement began to lull in the wake of reality, doubts crept forward. What if she was wrongly naive to believe that Michael could be swayed back into the fray? Their history had held many promises, remnants of dreams that turned lifeless. If their collaboration fell apart, wouldn't it only further entrench her isolation in the current system? She could feel her confidence wavering, and she abruptly pulled up a blank document on her computer. Pushing aside her apprehension, she began to outline her vision, pushing for change and the tangible steps it required. Each keystroke felt like an affirmation, a reassertion of her resolve, redirecting her internal turmoil into concrete plans. Then came an unexpected interruption. A colleague, Janet, peeked her head into Jessica's cubicle. "Hey, have you a second?" she asked, her voice laced with urgency. Jessica nodded, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I heard you've been pushing for some new initiatives," Janet said, locking her eyes onto Jessica's. "What's really going on? I need to understand. Are you getting support?" Jessica hesitated, weighing whether to expose the rawness of her aspirations. She could offer Janet the shield of cynicism to avoid exposure, but instead she chose authenticity. "I am, but it's complicated," she admitted, feeling a rush of vulnerability. "I just talked to Michael. I think he's the key to bringing in more data and insights, which we desperately need." "Michael?" Janet's expression flickered. "It's a risk to get involved with him. You remember how he withdrew before, right?" Jessica nodded. They both felt the familiar tension bubble to the surface. "I do, but I think he has more to offer, and I need to reach out, engage him again. The stakes are too high for these kids." With each word, she sensed the importance of asserting herself even more passionately. "Okay, but if you're putting yourself out there, you need to be prepared for disappointment," Janet warned. "Michael has a reputation for being wishy-washy. Don't get burned." Her words stung. Doubt clawed at Jessica's confidence, but she ground her teeth and decided to use Janet's hesitation as fuel. "I understand caution, but if I don't take this chance, then I'm merely complicit in the status quo, and frankly, that's not an option anymore." Janet studied Jessica's face for a moment before slowly nodding. "I admire your tenacity. Let me know how I can help." As Janet left, a wave of determination infused Jessica's spirit. Could she really muster the strength to face obstacles head-on rather than cower in the shadows? She envisioned not just Michael's skills, but others within her reach who might align with her vision. Did she even recognize the allies lurking in the background? Over the next few days, she focused intently on building not just a pitch, but a network. The unspoken potential buried within her connections began to surface. Coffee breaks turned into brainstorming sessions, and whispered conversations transformed into shared visions. The complexity of opposition became a challenge she was no longer shying away from. But with every stride forward, questions loomed heavier. What if reaching out ignited more conflict than collaboration? Would Michael's skepticism morph into hostility? Would the path of confrontation demand sacrifices she wasn't willing to pay? This internal conflict escalated, simmering beneath her skin. It was becoming clear that she was not only advocating for a cause, but also pushing through her layers of fear. The stakes were getting higher. Finally, as she shuffled papers on her desk one morning, a new idea sparked. A vision to create a constructive dialogue that would position her as a proactive leader. What if, instead of just confronting the dissenters, she turned the conversation toward forging alliances? How would that play out? The growing tension within her ignited a sense of urgency. The moment of choice was approaching. Jessica resolved to reach out to Michael, not just for his expertise, but to shine a light on the compassion that might still reside beneath his pragmatic facade. This time, she wasn't just hoping for his involvement. She wanted to uncover human connections. What if this collaboration revealed unexpected layers of understanding? As she drafted her email to Michael, her pulse quickened. Would he perceive her interest as a plea or a pathway? Would he respond in support, or would the door to collaboration close before it even opened? And deep down, within her simmering determination, that lingering question twisted in her gut. Was she ready to confront what lay behind Michael's guarded heart? What would the discovery reveal? As Jessica hit send on her email to Michael, an unsettling mix of anxiety and exhilaration washed over her. She hadn't just thrown out a lifeline, she'd committed to a path full of uncertainties. She could almost hear the echoes of Janet's warning in her head, a persistent reminder that stepping into the unknown could lead to breakthroughs or barricades. Days crawled by. Each hour felt stretched by a peculiar blend of anticipation and dread. Jessica found herself staring at her inbox repeatedly, willing a response to appear. It became a routine. Coffee breaks morphed into deliberate pauses at her desk, eyes flicking between her work and the screen. Her usual tasks felt insignificant compared to the monumental shift she was trying to orchestrate. One afternoon, during a particularly tense moment in a meeting, her phone buzzed. Heart racing, she discreetly glanced at the screen. It was Michael's name. The meeting faded into a blur as she swiped to read his message. "Can we talk?" An unexpected thrill surged through her, yet doubt tightened its grip. He might be hesitant or worse, dismissive. Jessica steeled herself, mentally preparing for every possible outcome. Would he be open to discussion, or would she face a wall of resistance? After a few agonizing hours, they agreed to meet at a small coffee shop nearby. Walking there, she felt as if she were on a precipice, teetering between fear and hope. When she arrived, Michael was already seated, his face a mask of neutrality. "Hey." His voice was steady, yet Jessica sensed an undercurrent of tension. "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, settling across from him. She took a moment to gather her thoughts, allowing a few moments of silence to linger between them. This wasn't just about her vision anymore. It was about rekindling trust amid the tension of their past. "I got your email," he said, breaking the stillness. "I can't say I expected it." Jessica searched his expression for clues, wondering if she could parse any warmth from those guarded eyes. "I know we haven't seen eye to eye for a while, but I believe we have a chance to create something meaningful if we work together." "Meaningful?" he echoed, curtly. "That's a big word." She pressed onward, leaning into her convictions. "It is, but honestly, I think you're integral to this. Your insights can bring clarity. There's potential there, Michael." His brow furrowed, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw something flicker in his gaze. Was it vulnerability? Doubt? "I'm not sure about all that. I've been out of the loop for too long," he confessed, almost as if admitting a personal failure. The admission opened a chasm of uncertainty in Jessica. She could almost hear the unspoken fears that lurked behind his words. "I get that," she replied. "I'm not asking for a miracle here, just a conversation. We can explore where this leads." For a while, he was silent, and the hesitance in the air felt palpable. But Jessica remained firm. She'd come this far, and she wasn't about to turn back. Michael had retreated before, but she believed the bravery she found within herself could reach him as well. Finally, he sighed, visibly weighing his options. Okay, he said slowly. I'll consider it, but I have to warn you, I'm not the ideal team player. His words had a dual edge, part caution, part vulnerability. Jessica felt an unexpected rush of excitement. He was still in there, somewhere beneath the layers of doubt. That's fine. We can be stronger together than apart. I can navigate the rough waters with you. She could see him start to weigh her suggestion, the tiniest crease in his brow fading as he mulled over her offer. Yet she knew there would be more hurdles ahead. Turning the tide would require much more than this conversation. As they parted, a sliver of hope ignited within her, a hope that perhaps this was the step toward greater collaboration and understanding. But doubt still lingered on the periphery. What if it fell apart? Jessica resolved to forge ahead, embracing the possibilities while bracing for the potential fallout. Would Michael hold up his end of the bargain? And could she confront whatever distress lay within him should he falter? With these questions swirling in Jessica, her mind, she vowed to strengthen her own resolve, not just for the sake of partnership, but for her own personal development. As she left the coffee shop, she felt invigorated yet cautious, ready to face the unknown. But then a thought struck her, pulling at her instincts. If she could uncover the weak points in his armor, what compassion might she find? And would uncovering that compassion lead to breakthroughs for them both? The idea lingered, tantalizingly, creating both excitement and a nervous tension. She would have to push forward, and soon. The focus was shifting. This was about mutual discovery now, not just her own ambitions. As she stepped into the bustling street, she knew she was on the edge of something transformative. What revelations still lay ahead once the walls between them began to crumble? The following days were a study in layering emotions. Determination surged within Jessica as she approached her tasks at work with renewed fervor. Each meeting became both a stage and a workshop, where she practiced the skills needed not just to lead, but to invite input, fostering collaboration among colleagues. Yet a whisper of anxiety floated at the edges of her focus, a persistent reminder of Michael's conditional willingness to engage. She crafted messages, launching them like small ships into the vastness of corporate strategy. Each word was chosen with intent, every suggestion personalized to encourage Michael's participation, to peel back the layers of his doubt. Encouragement flooded her thoughts. What began as a reluctant connection was morphing into a challenge she felt compelled to rise to. She was not just leading, she was learning to adapt, to listen, to empathize. Amidst this newfound purpose, Jessica felt pressure from all sides. Janet had noticed the shift in her demeanor, asking her if everything was okay. "You seem different, Jess," she remarked one afternoon as they sipped iced coffee in the break room. "Are you finally taking some time for you?" Jessica forced a smile, aware that her personal narrative was interwoven with the professional chaos she embraced. "I'm exploring some new dynamics at work," she replied casually, but the truth weighed heavier than she let on. "I think it could lead to some good changes." That evening, perched on her bed with her laptop, Jessica crafted plans for their first collaborative effort. She envisioned a brainstorming session, a way to ease their transition into cooperation. Yet as she meticulously outlined the agenda, an uncomfortable thought pricked at her. She couldn't ignore the fact that she was forging ahead, hoping Michael would transform, while she hadn't addressed her own fears. What if her expectations were misplaced? What if she set the stage, only to find he remained unwilling or unable to engage? An unsettling prospect honed her focus. It was time to confront not only his doubts, but her own. She found herself pondering the not-so-distant past, the times when her confidence had wavered, and her ability to lead had felt compromised. Gone were the days of youthful optimism, replaced by a staunch desire to make change, not just for herself, but for Michael too. It was a curious mix of determination and trepidation, rekindling memories of her early career battles and setbacks. Jessica decided it was essential to reach out to Michael ahead of their planned session. She texted him, suggesting they meet once more to align their objectives and ensure a comfortable atmosphere for the impending collaboration. He responded promptly, an indication of budding engagement. "Sure, I'm free tomorrow afternoon." That night, as Jessica prepared for the conversation, the mirror reflected not just her appearance, but layers of her evolving spirit. She was not simply looking to convince Michael, she was looking to connect, to cohere, to understand his hesitations while exposing some of her own vulnerabilities. The next day felt electric. She approached the coffee shop with both trepidation and excitement. As she entered, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee swirled around her. Michael sat at a table, deep in thought, cradling a steaming cup. "Hey," she greeted him, her nerves quickly hidden behind a facade of resolve. "Hey," he replied, his eyes scanning her face as if searching for certainty in her expression. "Thanks for coming," she began, appreciating the gravity of their prior conversation lingering overhead. "I thought I'd give this a shot," he said cautiously, the tension still present in his posture. They dove into discussion, characters developing and roles shifting as the storyline of their partnership unfolded before them. They exchanged ideas and expectations, but unexpectedly, a moment of personal vulnerability swept in. "Sometimes," Michael admitted, "I doubt my voice. I feel like I've lost track of what I'm capable of." Her heart raced at his transparency. It was a revelation that felt intimate, as if he were unraveling a tight knot. Jessica pondered her next words carefully. She had a sudden urge to share her own experience, moments where she had questioned her competence due to external pressures. Opening up wasn't easy, but vulnerability felt necessary. "I get that. I still wrestle with it myself. Sometimes I feel like the moment I think I'm getting ahead, doubts swarm in. But I believe recognizing those feelings is the first step toward utilizing our strengths." As they spoke, the walls started to chip away, revealing authentic glimpses of each other that transcended their past misunderstandings. It was a slow unfurling, but within, Jessica sensed the tide of potential turning. Yet the nagging question remained. Would this newfound understanding turn into sustainable collaboration, or was it just a fragile moment in time? Jessica realized something crucial within the unfolding narrative. She was moving beyond her comfort zone to not only push Michael, but herself as well. Every layer shed was a step into immersive growth. The moment hung between them, a stalemate that cradled anticipation. Was this the kind of breakthrough they both needed to forge ahead, or another impediment ready to assail their budding partnership? Jessica sat poised, ready to explore whatever came next, holding her as she considered the depth of their shared vulnerability. She couldn't help but wonder, was there more beneath their facades, hidden gems waiting to be discovered, waiting to reshape the course of their collaboration? As the air hung between them, both Jessica and Michael seemed caught in a suspended moment, a breath away from genuine collaboration. The vulnerability they just shared ignited something dormant within Jessica. It was a belief that they had reached a transformative juncture, but she also sensed the precarious nature of their connection. How easily could all this evaporate under pressure? "I think we can start by blending our visions for the project," she suggested, keeping her voice steady. But amid her composed facade, a knot of uncertainty twisted in her stomach. Would Michael still engage when faced with formal expectations and deadlines? He squinted thoughtfully at her. "What if we try something different then? Instead of just functions and tasks, let's first lay out what this project means to us personally." Jessica felt a surge of gratitude for his suggestion. It was unlike anything she had encountered in their previous discussions, an invitation to create meaning before mechanics. "I like that. It makes it more personal, makes it ours." As they exchanged thoughts, she was amazed to see the passion ignite in his eyes. What had initially only been a flickering flame in their discussions now blazed with energy. They spoke more freely, weaving narratives of ambition, fears, and what success truly looked like from their individual viewpoints. But as the conversation flowed, so did the complexity of their partnership. Even as the air grew warmer with mutual respect, Jessica's earlier fears lingered. Were they truly aligned, or was this merely an evanescent moment of clarity? Jessica, Michael's voice turned softer, almost hesitant. You mentioned doubts. Have you thought about how they can become a part of our strengths? His direct question caught her off guard, triggering something deep within her. This wasn't just about Michael's fears anymore. It was about the very essence of how humans process self-doubt. I think acknowledging them is essential. If we can't discuss our vulnerabilities, we risk misunderstanding our strengths. Exactly, Michael nodded, his gaze steady. I have this fantasy that if we openly confront our doubts, we could actually help each other strengthen what we already have. Jessica felt empowered by his comment. It wasn't just a resonant idea, it was a pivotal realization that their potential as collaborators lay not in hiding their insecurities, but in embracing them together. That night at home, she reflected over a cup of chamomile tea, her mind teeming with possibilities. But then, the stillness shattered with the clarity of an emerging question. What if they ultimately failed to materialize their aspirations? Would her energy be wasted? Maybe she hadn't even earned the right to take such creative risks. The relentless whispers of self-doubt intruded, coaxing her back to her familiar anxieties. The following day, in their follow-up meeting, Jessica carried the weight of this uncertainty. As she entered the office, she noticed Michael studying their previous notes. His brow was furrowed, as if wrestling with feelings akin to her own. She sensed this shared turmoil could either fortify their connection or unravel it. "Are you ready to dive into our objectives?" she ventured, masking her trepidation with professionalism. "Let's do it," he responded, but the slight tremor in his voice echoed her own hesitation. As they launched into the specifics, a rhythmic push and pull characterized their work style. For every bold idea Jessica proposed, Michael offered a restraint born from cautious consideration. "Maybe we should scale back on that concept," he suggested. "It feels ambitious, but what if we overreach?" "I know my ideas can seem too grand," Jessica acknowledged, her heartbeat quickening. "But we have to be brave. We've already discussed how doubt defines us. Let's not let it limit what we explore together." His eyes narrowed, reflecting a clash of urgency and concern. They were on the edge of a deeper conflict, the rising tension within Jessica advocating for evolution, while Michael's pragmatism pulled them back. Would this debate refine their approach, or serve as another blockade in their relationship? Time was fleeting, and Jessica understood this was the crossroads. Would they embark on their journey towards successful collaboration, or succumb to the fears that clouded their visions for the project? The moment posed the profound challenge. Had they truly transformed their understanding of each other, or was reality now breaching? As Jessica met Michael's unwavering gaze, she realized the last layer remained to unpeel, a confrontation with both their ambitions and their fears. But within that uncertainty, something flickered. The raw energy of possibility pulsed through their exchanges, suggesting uncharted terrain to navigate. It dawned on her that perhaps this moment was the fuel for their self-discovery. "Michael," she ventured carefully, glancing at their notes piled before them, "do you think we might find value in identifying our fears again, together? That could be key." His expression shifted, a mix of curiosity and reservation. "You're suggesting we lean back into that discomfort? It might hold a crucial key for us to move forward." Jessica dared to lean into the moment, her resolve swallowing her apprehension. This was their chance to redefine everything, and she sensed it brought them closer to unraveling their limits. But the lingering question remained. Would facing their vulnerabilities expose paths to triumph, or would they face obstacles powerful enough to shatter the fragile connection they were cautiously building? The weight of their shared tension hung like a heavy fog as Jessica and Michael deliberated over their next steps. Jessica's heart raced with anticipation and fear. That moment of vulnerability they were encouraging felt like a fragile glass teetering on the edge of chaos. "Let's not just identify our fears," she proposed, the words spilling out before she fully grasped their implication. "Let's turn them into our strengths. We can construct a framework where each fear becomes a checkpoint, guiding our progress." Michael's eyes lit up, sparking an unexpected enthusiasm. "That's intriguing. Maybe if we each write down a couple of our biggest fears, professional and personal, we could help each other navigate through them, find solutions together." Jessica hesitated for a brief moment. This was deeper than she'd anticipated, a chasm between openness and vulnerability. Yet something inside her urged her forward. "Let's commit to this," she said, determination threading her voice. As they gathered their thoughts, an uncomfortable silence settled in. Jessica could almost hear the gears of deliberation clashing in Michael's mind. Would he divulge what truly plagued him? She couldn't afford to hold back. It was time to delve into uncharted terrain. "Okay," Jessica began, her voice wavering as she laid it bare. "One of my biggest fears is that I'm not innovative enough. If I reach too high, I'll simply fall flat. I worry that I'll fail to deliver what I'm capable of." Michael shifted uncomfortably, then nodded, prompting Jessica to continue. It felt liberating to express her concern. "Your turn," she urged, biting her lip in anticipation. "All right," he conceded, rubbing the back of his neck. "I fear not being taken seriously. My ideas often feel like they get overshadowed. If I push too hard, I risk losing partnership, and that thought terrifies me." The raw honesty in his admission pierced through her own insecurities. They were more alike than she had realized, both held hostage by their fears, both battling their inner critics. "Maybe the key is to keep pushing each other," Jessica proposed, the gears of her own mind recalibrating rapidly. "What if we framed our discussions around our strengths? For instance, how can I help amplify your contributions? How can you support mine?" A flicker of hope glimmered in Michael's eyes. "I think that could shift our dynamic entirely," he agreed, clearly engaged. Pushing through fear together could transform our entire process. But as excitement burst forth, so did Jessica's spiraling thoughts. What if this newfound energy led them to confront a fear they weren't prepared for? What lay beyond the path they were attempting to forge? They spent the remainder of the meeting jotting down action items, creating concrete plans that reflected their ambitions alongside their vulnerabilities. Yet something gnawed at the back of Jessica's mind. This lofty venture was inherently risky. As she headed out, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending judgment. If they failed, would they end up being defined by their shortcomings? The remnants of doubt veiled her excitement, prompting an urgent self-examination. Why did she still harbor such intense self-criticism? Exhausted yet exhilarated, she sank into her chair at home, the day's revelations swirling in her head. In this chaotic quest for collaboration and authenticity, was she losing herself beneath the weight of expectation? As the moon cast shadows across her living room, a thought threatened to surface. What if, in her quest to become a better partner, she was neglecting the essence of who she was? Had she traded her individuality for the sake of synergy? Determined to find clarity, Jessica reached for a pen and paper, ready to untangle her thoughts. But as she began to write, an unsettling realization dawned upon her. The true test lay not just in confronting their fears, but in advocating for personal authenticity amidst the collaboration. She took a deep breath, ready to confront what authenticity meant in her partnership with Michael. But what if discovering her own voice clashed with the very bond they were forming? The flickering candle on her desk mirrored her uncertainty, a chance for enlightenment or warming flames of anxiety. She was faced with a pivotal moment, one that could unveil layers of herself she had yet to confront. Would she find the strength to be true to herself while fostering a successful partnership, or would she lose sight of her identity in the pursuit of collaboration? Jessica stood in the coffee shop, the buzz of conversation around her fading into a low hum as she faced Michael. Their shared vulnerabilities hung in the air like a fragile promise, a tender moment suspended in the rush of life. She had taken a leap, and now it was time to leap again, this time into action, not just dialogues of fear and ambition. "Let's channel what we've uncovered," she suggested, her heart racing with anticipation. "Let's create a proposal that embodies both our fears and strengths." A directness colored her voice, fueled by the realization that they were not merely colleagues, they were allies in a shared quest for significance. Michael nodded, the flicker of enthusiasm in his eyes rekindling her hope. "We could draft a vision statement that outlines our goals and the personal stakes we're willing to take," he replied. "This could be a turning point." A potent synergy ignited between them as they brainstormed, each idea building on the last, transforming them from individual fears into collective purpose. Pen flew across paper as they crafted their vision, one grounded not in hollow ambition, but in their discovered authenticity. This was Jessica's transformation. Previously, she had been ensnared by self-doubt, a feeling that clouded her vision and minimized her contributions. But today, in pursuit of meaningful change, she had released those chains, embracing not just her ambitions, but also the fears that tethered her. In doing so, she learned to trust her instincts. As they formulated their proposal, her resolve solidified into clarity. This endeavor was about more than ensuring support for after-school programs. It was about recognizing the shared human experience beneath titles and roles. It was about confronting systems with compassionate strength. Weeks passed, and their proposal took shape, blending theirs and others' voices into a crescendo of advocacy. The response from the community was overwhelmingly supportive. Jessica reveled in every conversation and piece of feedback. She had transformed her initial insecurities into tangible connections, drawing strength from those they aimed to uplift. At a pivotal community meeting, Jessica stood before an audience, educators, parents, and policymakers alike.